Well, good morning, everybody. Great to be in fabulous Tamworth, and already off to a great start. I think we're going to have a fabulous couple of days of conference. So I'm Glenn O'Rourke from Wallumbye Brigade of the Rural Fire Service, and what I wanted to share with you today is the detail of an emergency preparedness program that was designed for Cessnock City Council as a part of their seniors program. And it started off originally, it was intended just to really look at bushfire safety. But once we started to get the team together, we realised that we needed, given the demographics and the geography of Cessnock, of the Cessnock LGA, we really needed to broaden that to an all hazards approach. And so within that, we focused on storms, flood, bushfire, home fire safety, and wonderfully, because we had the input of the Red Cross, we also included heat wave. And so you'll see some data on that as we go through, and that was a really great addition to our program. And we pulled together a team with the Community Resilience Officer from Cessnock City Council, and then representatives from Cessnock SES to be the team to work through the storm and flood. Myself from Wallumbye Brigade, and then a couple of the team from Lower Hunter to help us with bushfire safety, and a crew from the Cessnock and Paxton brigades on home fire safety, and then the Red Cross helping us with heat wave. And so that really gave us a really good spectrum of hazards across the Cessnock LGA. Now, just by way of introduction in terms of Cessnock, who, for those who may know or not, it's a couple of hours north of Sydney. There's a population of about 68,000 people, with a reasonable percentage of those being seniors, which was really the target audience for this program. It's a mixed community, so we've got an urban setting, we've got the vineyards and the wineries, and we've also got quite a number of communities in bush villages and isolated bush communities. It's also an area that is exposed to natural disaster risk, fire, flood. This is quite active and common across the LGA. And I guess importantly, in terms of what this program was seeking to deliver, was we've got low levels of people's understanding and awareness of that risk, and also low levels of preparedness. So, very few people understood the need to have a plan and how to put that plan together and prepare for what might be a natural disaster or emergency that they could face. And so what I wanted to cover with you this morning is really the objectives that we put together. Also, I think some past learnings that we've taken from our engagement programs that we've delivered in bushfire safety in Wallumbye, to talk about the design and the format of the program, and how I think the key elements that we put in place drove the success of the program, and really importantly, talk about evaluation. So I think this is really important to evaluate the program and understand its effectiveness, and I'd like to share some of that information with you. And lastly, just talk to what I think were some of the challenges, some of the limitations and challenges that really came to the fore as we started to try and deliver an all hazards approach. If I just speak to the objectives, we as a team came together and said, look, we just want to target three clear, simple objectives. And if we were successful, that was going to be how we evaluated the performance of the program. So we, first of all, said we just want to raise the risk awareness of our community, to understand what are the potential threats, hazards and risks that our community could face, and to raise awareness around that. Secondly, we wanted to improve the knowledge and understanding of how to prepare and plan, how to have an emergency plan if you were to face one of these natural disasters or emergency situations. And lastly, we wanted to provide really knowledge and understanding again as to where to get good trusted information. So where do you go to get good information to help in understanding how to prepare, how to put a plan together, and in the event of a disaster or an emergency, where to go for that information. So they were our three clear objectives. When it came to applying what I've called there some past learnings, we've worked in Wollombi for many years delivering community engagement programs, and that's helped us, I think, learn, what really makes a program effective. And we wanted to bring those lessons to this program to ensure that we could be as effective as we possibly could. And I think in anything that we're doing around community engagement, what we want to try and achieve is, behavioural change. We want people to say, let's prepare, let's put a plan in place. And so I think there's three, again from experience, three stages that are really critical in delivering what I think is a successful and effective community engagement program. And that really starts with triggering risk awareness. So just really getting people to understand what's the risks, what's the exposure, and really raising that level of awareness. And then following that with really good education around safety and survival planning and preparation education to kind of help people understand what do I need to do in order to start to prepare for and plan for these risks. And lastly, I think the most important of that is that we then look to personalise that. So, we used to run just simple forums up in Wollombi, and people said, look, these are really fabulous, but what I don't understand is how to personalise that. How do I make it, real for me? How do I understand how to take this information and apply it to me and to my household? So I think these elements of success really are driven around making sure when you talk about the risks that they're localised and specific to the community. When it comes to education, that it's really as clear and easy to understand as possible, and that the advice that you're giving around preparation and so on is really actionable, and that people can kind of see this is something that I can do to improve my safety and put a plan in place. And lastly, the personalisation, so that it's truly taking into consideration the individuals, their requirements, their circumstances, and that you're guiding people into the preparation of those plans. There's not only these aspects, I think, that drive success, there's also about the engagement experience. And I think fundamental to the success is really about ensuring everything we do is as professional as we can do it. But while being professional, it's also about saying, how can we also just be really friendly and welcoming? Because, we want to invite people in. We want to be kind of engaging with people in a really friendly and positive way to have people feel that they can really start to build a relationship. And through that, make sure that we have a conversation around shared responsibility. So again, that's something that is really important to building the relationships, getting people to understand their own role in ensuring their own preparedness and safety in the event of emergency. And I think building that trusted relationship is really, really important because I think what happens is, in our experiences in Black Summer and flood events that we had in Cessnock, the transition from trusted relationship to trusted leadership is really, really important. That people can look and say, look, there's someone I know, I've heard these people speak before, or I know I can go and talk to the team there and get trusted information. So I think that those three steps are really, really important to the engagement experience. And then lastly, if you've got an opportunity, if you're giving a formal presentation, is to use really powerful, impactful video to try and make it as real as you can for people. They can kind of have an experience of what could happen if they were faced with one of these natural disasters. So if we just talk about the design of the program, what we decided to do was first of all just have a think about the design challenge. And if you think about it, what we're trying to do in an all hazards program is to say, how can you start to think about the diversity of the group that you've got in the room, and also the diversity of the hazards and natural disasters that you're trying to help them prepare and plan for. And when you think about that group, they're going to have different sort of hazard or risk exposures. They're going to have different personal circumstances, and they're also going to have their own individual concerns and fears around things that are important to them, that they're looking to say, you know, I need help to understand how to respond to that. So given that complexity, what we decided to do when the team got together was use the Get Ready New South Wales planning guide that's got 5 simple steps. And we thought that was a way that we could work across all of the hazards and emergencies that we were talking to the workshop groups about. And you may be familiar with this, but you know, it's simply about, you know, knowing your risk, about planning for what you'll do, getting your home ready, so the basics of preparation, talking about the need for insurances, being aware of how to prepare and what to do in a disaster, so what's going to be your survival plan, and lastly, you know, looking out for each other. So all, you know, things that align with the type of engagement that we undertake with our communities. So that was really our starting point, to make sure we use that as our framework for engaging with the community. Now, we set out a design of a 2-hour workshop, and we ran a couple of workshops targeted to the seniors groups, and we went to the local Lions clubs, men's sheds, women's sheds, and that's where we sourced the participants in our workshops that were relevant to Cessnock's Seniors Festival. And the first part was a group session that we ran for an hour, and it was both a presentation and a facilitated conversation. So we wanted people to have a really good think about what they thought their risks were, identifying those, and what was the likely impact of those risks for them as individuals and for the people that were participating in the workshop. We also put together what I call the disaster history. So to make it real for people, we wanted them to have a good understanding of, you know, what floods have we had, you know, how many home fires have we had, what were the bushfires, and so on. We stepped through a little more detail around the Get Ready plan so that people had a good understanding of that. And lastly, we just took everybody through the various information sources, you know, where to get them and how to understand warnings and alerts. I think what was really successful for us in the design of this program and its execution is we then set up in the second half of the workshop planning and information modules that were specific to home fire safety, that was led by the guys from Fire and Rescue. We had a module on bushfire safety, similarly one on storm and flood with SES, heat wave with the Red Cross, and we also had a little planning help desk. And these were personalised self-select sessions. So people had gone through the first hour, learned about the risks and hazards, had learned about the planning guidelines and framework, and then they could decide, well, where do I want to go now for more detailed information about things that are relevant to me? So if you were very interested in bushfire, you came to the RFS, and we stepped through, you know, where you lived, talked about your circumstances, and helped them shape up the basics of preparation and survival plan for bushfire. And then, you know, we then had another 2 opportunities, so you could move on to home fire safety, or if you needed a bit of help with the plan, you could go to the help desk and get a little bit of guidance here about how to step through the plan. And I think that really, when you see some of the feedback and the evaluation, really demonstrates being able to personalise it and let people select where they wanted to go to get help and assistance was part of the success, I think, of the program. We then wrapped up just with a final Q&A and an evaluation. And when I say an evaluation, that was a formal process, and I'll step you through that. But it really gave everyone a chance to sort of come together, ask their final questions, and we wrapped up the session. All the participants were provided with a kit, and we put together what we called the Get Ready Cessnock Planning Guide, and that was really just using the 5-step guide that we had from, at that time, Resilience New South Wales, and we tailored that to the Cessnock community. We also ensured that we provided people with where to go for information, and we included the ABC, all the typical agency information, but also the ABC, the Bureau of Meteorology, and also Cessnock has a disaster dashboard that not many people were aware of, so we made sure people were familiar with that and where to get that information. And then as people participated in the modules, they could get a survival planning guide from ourselves, or a guide from the SES, or a safety checklist from Fire and Rescue. So everybody left with some really good resources and information. Now, to start every workshop, we wanted to make sure, I talked about triggering people's risk awareness. We started every workshop with this little video to really heighten everyone's focus on the risks they could face. So Get Ready and Stay Safe really set the agenda for what was then the rollout of the workshop. And when we went into the workshop, I'd asked each of the agencies to put together what I've called a disaster history. This is just a little snapshot, but it was really trying to look for the year ahead, the year before that we put together the workshop, what really were the disasters and events that we'd had across the Cessnock LGA. And in terms of storm and flood, over the kind of years up to 2022, we'd had 9 significant flood events, over 1,000 requests for assistance by the SES in response to flooding, inundation, isolation. Similarly, and I think this was really powerful for people, when it came to home fire safety, across the Cessnock LGA in the 12 months before we ran that workshop, there were 374 house fires. And that really kind of got everyone's attention in the room. And not only that, if you have a look at those statistics there, that 60% of people had no working smoke alarm. and that 50% of the fires involved residents were over 65, which was absolutely the target of our Seniors Festival. Nationwide, there'd been over 1,000 fatalities in the prior 20 years. So that really got everyone's attention around home fire safety. In bushfire, we're just in a really high bushfire-prone environment, and we've got isolated communities, we've got a lot of urban interface, across the LGA as well. And in Black Summer, we had probably about 63,000 hectares destroyed across the Cessnock LGA. And lastly, when it came to heatwave, I said right at the very beginning, we were really pleased that the guys from the Red Cross encouraged us to include this in our program, because when you look at this, these statistics, something I certainly didn't know was that heatwave kills more Australians than any other natural disaster, and contributes to the death of 1,000 people every year over the age of 65. So it really says this is something to put in our mix when talking with our communities in terms of not only being prepared for fire in these circumstances, but what it means for your own health. In the design and delivery of the program, we made sure that it was aligned strategically to our Lower Hunter Bushfire Risk Management Plan. So it was consistent with what we were trying to do there across Lower Hunter. And similarly, with the Council's floodplain risk management plan, we made sure again that we were consistent with those objectives. If I just take you to, I think, probably the most powerful piece of this presentation is our evaluation. And I speak of the power of measurement, and I think it's really important in any program that we undertake that we evaluate those programs, because this gives you a sense of, did we meet our objectives? What we set out to do, did we achieve that? How could we improve? What could we do differently? How could we better meet the needs of our community? So, all good, simple questions, but with some measurement, it lets you give real, strong, solid answers to these questions. And lastly, I think it's also an opportunity to really use it as a tool for future resources and support and engagement, to say, look, this works. So we've got proof. We can show you the measurements to show you how it works. It's also not only just about those results, but it's also about celebrating those results. And I think it's really powerfully motivating when you get the team back together and say, look what we achieved. And it's very rewarding for the team. It's very motivating to kind of keep up the energy for keeping it going. And it's also great for future promotion, to new people that might participate in the program. Because we can give, again, feedback from past participants to say, this was a great program, I recommend you should attend. Now, when we undertook the evaluation, we did it before and after participating in the workshops across the dimensions of risk awareness, how to prepare, how to plan, whether people had an emergency plan, and we also then just captured their feedback and comments. So if we have a look at workshop 1, we asked the question around risk awareness. And if you have a look at that first set of data there, probably 68% of people said they kind of had a poor to average understanding of the risks that they might face, or the natural hazards that they might face in their homes in Cessnock. And similarly for how to prepare and how to plan. Again, sort of 60% down, sort of average to poor. And by the completion of the workshop, we shifted that really to people having high and very high understandings of their risk, how to prepare and how to plan. We also asked people before they came into the workshop, did they have an emergency plan? When they started, nobody had a plan. At the end, we had everybody say, we've got the basics of a good plan, or we've got sufficient information to go away and put a good plan together, because we now know where to go to get that information and the materials that you provided to us in the participants kit. Similarly, if you look at the second workshop, the same improvements in risk awareness, preparation and planning. In this group, when it came to the question around do you have a plan, 40% of people said, yep, I've got a plan before they came in the room. But at the conclusion of the workshop, everybody said, I've either now got a better plan, or I've got enough information to put a plan together, or I've got a basic plan. So that opportunity to step through those modules really drove us to getting down to, you know, a better outcome in terms of some basic planning. Now, I said at the very beginning, part of the measurement is did you meet your objectives? Now, firstly, our objective about increased risk awareness, yep, I think we achieved that. Did we help people better understand how to prepare and plan? Yep, I think we achieved that. And did we provide information and resources for people to leave the workshop and know where to go for the right information to help them better prepare and plan for the event of emergency? And I think, yep, we achieved that. Also, people said to us, everyone in the room said, look, this was a really excellent experience, that it was easy to understand, and that they would highly recommend it to others to participate. And that certainly drove increased participation in our second workshop. But there's also some real limitations. So despite what I think was some really great outcomes and some great results, the ability to actually drive that increased awareness and to take that new knowledge and turn them into really effective plans, I think, you know, has some challenges. And one of that is each service had its own version of planning guides. And so there were some different guides and planning models by hazard type. And there's just not enough time to create really robust plans for people in, you know, when you're working in a couple of hour workshop. And we didn't have an opportunity to come back and investigate their plans and say, well, what could we do to improve them or enhance the plans? And that also led us to really think about something I think this group I'd like you to reflect on, is what I think are some of the key challenges that I think we experienced out of this work. And if you look at what we've done with danger ratings and warnings and alerts, we've now got in place an Australian fire danger rating. Everybody right across Australia knows those ratings and what safe actions to take in response to that. And similarly with the Australian warning system, you know, we've got that now in place for all hazards, supported by Hazards ME, you know, really effective, standardised national approach to the warning system. When we were running the workshop, we started with the 5-step Get Ready New South Wales guide as a way to try and standardise it across our discussions. But if you came and spoke to us at the RFS, we've got 4 simple steps, and that's really powerful, and we've used that very, very effectively. If you have a chat with the team from the Red Cross, they've got their Ready plan with 4 simple steps, but not the same steps as we've got. And understandably, they're talking about, you know, broader spectrum, but the difference in language and the difference in action steps for some of the participants created a little bit of complexity and confusion, whereas you find SES had adopted the New South Wales 5-step plan. So we were able to step our way through those, but I think what it demonstrates is the little bit of difficulty that comes with the different language and the different action messages. If you then just think about bushfire safety, so I just started to think, what other information is out there that's giving guidance to people around how to prepare and how to plan for bushfire? And I just searched it. And what you find is an interesting array of places to go for information. You know, just our emergency broadcaster, ABC, you've got their own little model. We've got, not unexpectedly, the insurance companies. Here we've got QBE with 9 simple steps. We've got the NRMA with 5 smart steps. We've got government departments, so land services, they've got a plan in your hands, and so on. Bunnings have got 16 steps. to help you prepare for bushfire, if you go onto their website and have a look at that. Australia Post have got information about how to prepare for bushfire. Other organisations, good old Jim. Jim, and I say it a bit lightheartedly, but he's got information there about how to prepare and prepare for bushfire. We've got Commonwealth Bank, you've got Essential Energy, you've got Budget Direct, GIO, Westpac, and Meat and Livestock Australia. These are all organisations that are really, from Reconstruction New South Wales through all the emergency services down through all those commercial organisations, have the same positive objective. They're trying to say, how do we help people prepare and plan for bushfire? But I think when you have a look at some of those sources of information, they're differing in format and messaging. There's a lack of alignment and consistency when you look across all of those. Some of the information that's provided is generalised and not really specific, and I think it leads to complexity. And again, feedback that we got from the participants was that that was something that they'd experienced when they tried to go and find information about how to prepare and plan. There were just too many places to go, and it was not always consistent. And lastly, if you just look across our fire services, again, very similar in the way we're getting people to prepare and plan for a bushfire. We're using different language and some different descriptions about how to go about that. And I think a simple example is about neighbourhood safer places. Each state largely has their own description. Some are called refuges, some are called nearby safe places. We call them neighbourhood safer places. And so I think something like that we want people to know right across Australia when they're travelling is an area that's just a simple example of where we could have better consistency. So I think from this, what it really led me to think about was I think we got 3 significant challenges that as emergency services and in our, just our focus on bushfire planning and survival we should think about. And the first of those challenges is really how do we get better alignment? So how do we get a consistency of language, get a consistency of action messaging that we want people to put in place about how to prepare their home and what to do in the event of a fire and how to respond to that right across the various sources of information that are specific to the risk. Secondly, I think I've used the term there, hazard and advice ownership. What I mean there is just being absolutely clear to our communities about where is the right place to go, who is the owner of this knowledge and of this advice, and that those organisations that are giving advice to the community, whether it be some of those commercial entities, are also referencing someone like ourselves, the RFS, as the place to go, and recognising that that's the place to go for the right information to ensure your safety. And that really relates to the third challenge, which is establishing this kind of trusted source of truth. I think we need to get to a point where people know that if I look at this website, look at this information, it's referencing the RFS or it is the RFS, and that's the place that I know I can rely on that information. I can take that information on board to prepare well, and most importantly, to put together a very good, effective survival plan that will ensure my safety. So I think this issue of alignment, of hazard and advice ownership, and related to that, the trusted source of truth, is just a bit of a challenge. And the speaker that was there about head of Get Ready was talking about the need for us, as a nation, to align some of this messaging, and I think it's very consistent with what we observed from our workshop. If I just share with you, despite those limitations and challenges, these are some comments that people gave us as feedback from the workshop. Wonderfully, people said, you know, very professional, great workshop. Where we focused on local information was really, really important. People said, you know, this is great. It was locally based, and it was about what affected me and what affected the people that participated in the workshop. And they said 10 out of 10 to all of the agencies that participated. Again, comments around great local knowledge, local examples relevant to the area. So this idea of localising, personalising was really important and came back to us through positive feedback from the participants. People were really pleased about the ability to have that personalised conversation about their own property, their own family, whether that was with fire and rescue, whether it was with SES ourselves or the Red Cross. And that was a really strong theme that came back from conversations with the very participants. But I think the most powerful of all is really, I said at the beginning, what we're wanting to do when we undertake community engagement is to affect change. And here we've had somebody tell us that now I know to prepare and plan early for disasters such as fire and flood. So I think just that statement alone is a really powerful, I think, statement of the success of this program. So just finish with a little snapshot video that shows you the workshop in action.